You just learned how to solve a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. Just remember, in order to use a quadratic formula, you need your rule for a quadratic function in general form equal to 0. Remember, when you do the quadratic formula, you are solving for x, but you're also finding the x-intercepts or the roots of the graphical representation of a quadratic equation. Here's the formula. X is equal to the opposite of b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Remember, the plus minus symbol means that you're going to be solving this quadratic formula twice. And the reason why you solve it twice is to see if it does have two x-intercepts. Remember too that this right here is not only a square root symbol, but it's called a radical symbol. And the quantity underneath this radical symbol, we call it the discriminant, is the number or the quantity that tells us how many solutions our quadratic equation is going to have. Okay, let's run through and talk a little bit about it. So let's start off with the first one. This is the one that's really common. This is going to be like the ones that I did in the example. If the discriminant, which is b squared minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, if the number underneath that radical symbol ends up being greater than 0, we say if that number is positive, that's a good way to say it, then my quadratic is going to have two x-intercepts. So what's going to happen is when I solve, I'm going to get two solutions for x. So it might look like this. So this, let's say if for some reason my discriminant was positive, then I know I'm going to have two roots. That means when I have two roots, these roots could be positive, they could be negative, they could be whole numbers, they could be rational numbers. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. If for some reason my discriminant is equal to 0, that means that this number underneath that radical symbol or the square root symbol ends up being 0. Let's say something like this, 2 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2. Well, if I did this would mean the same as doing 2 plus 0 divided by 2 and 2 minus 0 divided by 2. It's going to result in the same answer. So that means I'm only going to get one root or one solution. So what's going to happen is that you might have a parabola that looks like this. One root, one x-intercept. It could even be something that looks like this over here. Okay, but you're only going to have one root. I'm going to go ahead and erase one of them just so you can see. But it could be upward, it could open upward or downward, but it's only going to have one root. Now this last one is kind of an interesting situation. Sometimes when you solve quadratic formula, and I've been guilty of this too, sometimes I solve it incorrectly and I end up with this solution, but it's not really what I'm supposed to get. I would like to tell you though that this is going to happen sometimes, and let me tell you what it is. So that means what happens if my discriminant happens to be less than 0? Well, less than 0 means negative. Okay? So if that discriminant is negative, meaning that number underneath the square root symbol, something's going to happen. So let me show you. If I said 2 plus minus, let's say negative 36 over 2. If you put the square root of negative 36 in your calculator, you're going to get something error, undefined. It's not going to let you come up with a solution, because if I think about what the word square root means or what that concept means, it means that you would have to find a number, which is a factor, a number that you could multiply by itself to get negative 36. Unfortunately, the only way you get negative 36 is if you have a positive and a negative, which are not the same. So I wanted to let you know that in this situation, no matter what you do, this is going to produce no roots, no solution. Okay? I wanted to let you know that sometimes when we're supposed to have two roots or one root, sometimes a no root will pop up because maybe we do the solving underneath incorrectly. So just make sure again that you verify the solution. The next three problems that you're going to be looking at will have one that has two solutions, one that has one solution, and one that has no solutions. Please let me know if you do get stuck, but this is the information about how the discriminant tells us what the number of solutions will be. Thanks.